Hi there, I'm Alex from Boldly. I think you can probably safely guess that empathy is essential to the coaching experience. This is our ability to put ourselves in the shoes of the supervisee, understand what's important to them, what's driving their decisions, why are they seeing things as important, why are they behaving the certain way that they are. If you can put yourself in their shoes, you're in a better position to be an ally, to come into your conversations with positive intent, and to be the accountability partner that they deserve. You cannot have empathy without listening. So that's why we bring empathy and listening together as a core skill for coaches. Now, empathy and listening in this context are a part of EQ, or your emotional quotient. You've probably heard of EQ before, but the question still remains for most of us: how do I develop it? How do I grow it? And that's what Pauline's going to share with you today. So have a listen to this video and make sure that you're continuously exercising empathy through curiosity and through listening. It's only going to be to the benefit of your supervisee. Stick around for the end. I'm going to share with you the difference between empathy and sympathy and what empathy is not as well. See you then.
Empathy and listening. You might have joined this course with an interest in developing your supervisees on their technical skills, only to find out that we are often dealing with interpersonal, intrapersonal, and corporate infrastructure development goals in coaching. While most of us are confident about learning and teaching others new functional or technical skills, we may feel ill-equipped to work with soft skills or acknowledge feelings and emotions at work. But I'm here to tell you, you naturally have it in you. To coach with empathy for this kind of personal or sometimes even seemingly illogical development roadblocks your supervisee has, you'll need to be able to recognize and acknowledge their feelings sometimes. This means the great feelings of pride, excitement, and satisfaction that comes from work, as well as sometimes the tough emotions of frustration and confusion too. In coaching conversations, you want to be able to acknowledge and explore some of these very human, work-related emotions appropriately, with the objective of helping your supervisee to take action and move their own development forward. So, how do you nurture your capacity for empathy and put it to work in your coaching?
Neuroscientists have identified the empathy circuit in our brains, backing up evolutionary biologists and psychologists who have long said that we are social animals primed for empathy. Using MRI scans, we can see mirror neurons firing. They help us reflect other people's emotions, and we can also detect different kinds of empathy, for example, in response to a positive or a negative event. Now imagine yourself inside that MRI, and a researcher asks you to consider these statements. I have often concerned myself with the feelings of more junior colleagues. Sometimes I don't feel very sorry for colleagues when they are having problems. I sometimes try to understand my direct reports better by imagining how things look from their perspective. You can imagine your brain firing in personally unique ways in response to these statements, and that's how we see empathy. And because we can now see it, we know the experiences that strengthen and fire those neural pathways.
So, for starters, to develop empathy, you can actively and consciously focus on being curious about people outside your normal social circle. Bring curiosity to your awareness and ask those diverse strangers to ask questions about their lives and worldviews. Cultivating curiosity requires more than having a brief chat about the weather with someone from another country or background. You're purposefully trying to understand the world inside the head of the other person, and the more different to you, the better. We are confronted by strangers every day, like the new cleaner at your office or the new colleagues who is just onboarded. It's not hard to find new people, but it's hard to get curious. Secondly, tap into your own vulnerability. Call to mind your own challenging experiences and wins. What has been tough in your career? Where were the high points? How did you feel? Try your best to put your finger on the word. Was it excitement? Was it exhaustion? Do you recognize a sense of team pride or sometimes even embarrassment? By walking down memory lane and getting accurate on how you describe your past, you re-experience those personal feelings, but in the safe space of retrospect. In that moment, have some empathy for your old self. You were probably doing your best, even if your present-day self could or would do something differently, even in those winning moments. Understanding and being gentle with your previous self is a good way to strengthen that empathy muscle too. And finally, make sure you factor in time to recharge your empathy battery. If you're spending a lot of time understanding others, it's important to find places where you feel understood yourself in return. Spend time with people who listen to you, who can accurately reflect and describe back to you how you're feeling and who give you energy. Don't wait until it builds up and you need to vent. Make it an ongoing practice of disclosing how you're feeling. Actively knowing who and how often you need to seek out empathy means you are actively aware of how it works and put you in a better position to pay it forward to others too.
Empathy, as you've just heard here, is really your ability to understand somebody else's experience, understand their emotions as if they were your own. But sympathy is taking it even a step further, really adopting those feelings and having that experience in and of yourself, usually in a sorrowful or a mad or angry way. If you as the coach recognize that you've moved from empathy to sympathy, simply associating with and understanding the feelings to adopting them and taking them on yourself, then you've over-identified with the individual. You need to make sure that you're able to draw that boundary, let your supervisee have their feelings and their experience towards a situation without adopting it or going over the line of associating yourself with it. Now, we've talked a lot about EQ through this video as well. I want to acknowledge that this is not a psychologically confirmed concept, but we do know that it has common currency and that it's understood in terms of most of these workplace scenarios. So when we're talking about EQ on the job, we're usually thinking about your emotional range, how much you're able to open up to and understand the different types of experiences that people are having. So as the coach, we want to be clear that your job is to ask questions and to probe so that that individual supervisee is exploring their experience. You yourself need to have that range so that you can help and support them to identify their own feelings, their own emotions. You usually do this through word choice. So being able to speak to a supervisee and say, I'm hearing what you're explaining. Tell me, is that frustration or is that anger? Or tell me, I'm hearing your excitement. Is that giddiness or is that just pure elation? So being able to use this range of words, it's more than just sad, mad, bad, etc. There's a whole beautiful range of language that we can use to explain a lot of nuance in feelings. And for a lot of the time, it's not your job as a supervisor to say, I see it, that's elation, but it's to ask the individual, is that what I'm seeing? And then let them go through their own process of working out, what is the describing word that lets me really express what it is that I'm feeling right now? Language is how we use our brain. That's how we think. It's not just how we communicate, it's how we make meaning of our experiences. So by being in this word play with your counterpart, with your supervisee, you're helping them to open that range, open their own EQ range up. You as the supervisor are also opening up your own EQ range by going through this word experience. And for both of you, that allows a lot better understanding about how you're going to address and overcome some of those experiences that might be being addressed through coaching. So have a think about EQ. It's definitely a lifelong experience to make sure that you're appropriately opening up that range. Make sure that it's still working within the boundary of your job. Okay, so even though we're talking about EQ here, we're not saying that as a coach, we're encouraging you to share more or to expose more of your own thoughts or feelings than what you otherwise would. Make sure that you still know where your boundaries are, but in opening up EQ, you're just trying to create more dialogue, more understanding for facilitating that awareness in your supervisee. Reach out to your HR business partner if some of these experiences that your supervisee is having is starting to become more than what you would typically recognize in a coaching or a supervising relationship.